In Under the Silver Moon, a werewolf detective's tale, Karina Nosova, a newly minted private investigator with a unique werewolf identity, navigates the complex underworld of crime and supernatural politics in Los Angeles. The story begins with Karina attempting to reach out to lawyer Vasily Kandinsky to offer her services in the defense of Vanya Rykov, a case that intertwines her professional life with the secretive world of werewolves. Karina, balancing her human and werewolf existence, finds herself entangled in a web of mystery surrounding the murder of Dominika Rykov, a crime pinned on Vanya. She discovers that Andrei Koslov, a notorious werewolf hunter, was responsible for Dominika's death before being killed himself, seemingly as part of a larger scheme to manipulate Karina and her family. As the plot unfolds, Karina's personal life becomes as tumultuous as her investigations. Her relationship with Jack, a former cop turned werewolf, is tested when jealousy and misunderstandings arise from her past connection with Ivan, the alpha of another werewolf pack. Jack's struggle to reconcile his human emotions with his newfound werewolf instincts further complicates their bond. Karina's journey takes a dark turn when she is kidnapped by Dmitri, a power-hungry werewolf plotting to relocate a massive pack to Los Angeles with nefarious intentions. Trapped in a crypt beneath a cathedral, Karina confronts Dmitri, exposing his twisted plans and her determination to protect her city and loved ones. Throughout the narrative, themes of loyalty, love, and the struggle for identity are prevalent. Karina's character evolves from a solitary detective to a leader willing to stand against tyranny, all while grappling with her feelings for Jack and the implications of her own werewolf heritage. The novel culminates in a tense confrontation, forcing Karina to confront not only external threats but also her internal conflicts, leading to a realization that true strength lies in embracing both her humanity and her werewolf nature. Under the Silver Moon is a thrilling urban fantasy that explores the depths of sacrifice, the resilience of family, and the enduring power of love amidst the chaos of a hidden supernatural society. Chapter 1. May I speak with Vasily Kandinsky? Karina asked when a female voice answered her phone call. I'm sorry, but he's in court right now. May I take a message? Yes, this is private investigator Karina Nosova. I want to talk to him about his client Vanya Rykov. I'd like to work with the defense on the case. Can you leave your number and he'll get back to you? Karina provided the information and they hung up, just as Jack showed up at her office. You brought me donuts on my first day? Karina stood with a hand on her slender hip, looking at the large pink box in Jack's hand. And coffee, he said, lifting the other hand to show her the small cardboard thermos. It's what cops have for breakfast, he said with a grin. And retired cops? Old habits die hard. Karina looked around her one-room office. She had just gotten the keys to it. This morning, her phone vibrated with a text. I'm not exactly a cop, but I will eat donuts if they are put in front of me, she said, texting a reply on her cell. Jack glanced at her phone. You're texting while we talk. What's up? Excuse me. My meeting with Ivan is scheduled for this morning and he's en route. He needed the street address to put in his phone. Great. You have paying customers on your first day of business. Not customers. Clients are what I call them. Jack laughed. You're now a full-fledged licensed and bonded private eye. With your own office and you have to eat breakfast. Have a donut or 3. He opened the long box to reveal at least 2 dozen. Karina smiled. You and Babushka are bound and determined to feed me today. She sent me to work with borscht and sour cream for lunch. It's in my little dorm fridge under the counter. Anna takes such good care of you. I also take good care of my grandmother. Family is a two-way street. She licked her lips, looking at the donuts and trying to choose. They smell so good, especially with my werewolf sense of smell. It's all I can do not to shove my face in the box, inhale and devour. I'm still getting used to my werewolf talents. I thought I would drool all over the floor of the donut shop. I had to grab a lot of napkins on the way out for the drive over here. This is a lot of donuts, Jack. I weigh $1.25 on a good day. Just how hungry did you think becoming a private investigator was going to make me? I didn't know your donut preference, so I got one of each kind. That was very sweet, Jack. Thank you. I'm almost afraid to ask what happens to my drool output if I go to a steakhouse. You'll get used to being able to smell everything and learn to control your urges to devour everything in your path. The drool too is controllable. Gets better as your body starts to synchronize your werewolf physiology with your human physiology. Eventually, you get to a happy medium and learn to Embrace and utilize your werewolf talents in your human form, and vice versa. I hope so. I have never eaten this much meat in my life. Well, you beat cancer and got your appetite back, she reminded him. That too. Please just tell me I won't develop a taste for milk bones. I can't promise that. Deadpan, she said. I was kidding. Now hand over the donuts. Jack set the box and the coffee on the counter by the bar sink just as the shop bell jangled. Karina looked up and Jack turned around as Ivan entered. Hey guys, he said casually, presumably to both of them but only looking at Karina. Good morning, Ivan, Karina said formally. Suddenly the room felt a little small. Jack offered his hand to the other man. Ivan, he said. Jack, Ivan said in a return greeting. They shook hands awkwardly, sizing each other up. Karina noticed their nostrils flaring as they subtly checked each other out. Break it up, fellas, she thought. No need to compete over me. She caught flicker of a jealous look from Jack and thought, down boy. I'm not going anywhere. Your office is nice. Ivan glanced around, trying to avoid eye contact with Jack. Male werewolves didn't usually look each other in the eye. It was considered a challenge. Karina said. It's a good start. Speaking of starts, we need to talk about the investigation you hired me for. Yes, he said, glancing again at Jack as if hoping he would leave. Jack was just snapping the lids on the paper coffee cups and put one on the edge of her desk. Neither man spoke. Karina was about to assure Ivan that it was okay to speak in front of him, but Jack shifted his weight back and forth a few times and said, You two go ahead and talk. I have something I need to do. I'll check in on you later. He grabbed a few donuts on a napkin and picked up his coffee cup. Thank you, Jack, she said. And thank you again for the coffee and donuts. You're welcome. He leaned down to give her a kiss goodbye. Talk to you later. Karina turned her head and gave him her cheek. He kissed it but looked a little hurt. She didn't even know why she had done that. This was all very awkward in front of Ivan. Okay, call you tonight, she said to Jack as he went out the door. She looked at Ivan and sighed. Donuts. Only if they're stuffed with meat, he said. He was now staring at her with those piercing ice blue eyes of his, and she suddenly knew why she had feelings of awkwardness surging through her. It wasn't often that anyone encountered an old love and a new love in the same room. That had felt weird to be in the presence of both of them, let alone have Jack lean in for a kiss to establish his dominance and claim his territory. Male werewolves, she thought. Have a seat, she said, indicating the only other chair she had in the office, a metal folding chair that she had found in Babushka's garage. Tell me what's happening with Vanya. Ivan took a seat. First off, I want to tell you how proud I am of you. Really? I got the feeling that you and the rest of the pack might resent the fact that I chose something along the lines of law enforcement as a career. No, none of you are too fond of the police. Ivan smiled that toothy white smile. But we are fond of you, Karina. I am really proud of you too. Thank you. It was a long road just to start up. I educated myself and waited tables to pay for college. Then I worked at that insurance office for years as a claims adjuster just so I could meet the PI qualifications for the state. I learned how to use a gun and qualified, paid for the dang insurance bond, and here I am, my first official day as a PI in my own office. And my first client is you. It feels pretty good, especially that last part. Karina, believe me, it doesn't escape me how hard it must have been for you to chase your dream when everyone else thought you were crazy for wanting it. Dreams are like that. No one else can choose them for you or work toward them for you or visualize how you could possibly pull it off. You are right, he said thoughtfully. My art is like that. No one understands my passion for painting violence on canvas, except for you. It means a lot to me that you are supportive even to the point of hiring me. You need one of my paintings for this office. Sure. Just sell me one without wolves devouring carcasses and I will hang it up. He smiled. Cute. You do deserve the praise. You have your act together. Maybe. You are the only werewolf I know who does. Don't say that. You're an amazing artist and someday you're going to have a gallery. I hope so, but we're digressing, Karina. Right. So what is the DA charging Vanya with? I don't know all the details. I went to his bail hearing this morning. I didn't know it was this morning. I just found out because his attorney's secretary called me to see if I would attend and hopefully bail him out. Anyway, he was charged with murder and the district attorney argued against any bail. Then Vanya's lawyer tried to argue that he had strong ties to the community, but then the DA came back to the fact that he still has strong ties to Russia and has the resources to flee the country. So bail was eventually set, but high. How high? 2 million, and obviously we can't raise that kind of money. Even the minimum 10% is out of the question. This is not good at all. Karina stood up and paced the length of the small office. They must have some pretty damning forensic evidence. I don't know about that. Did Vanya admit to anything? He's pleading not guilty. I have no idea what he told his attorney behind closed doors. Vanya's English isn't the best. It's a good thing his attorney Vasily Kandinsky speaks Russian. Vasily is not one of us, not a werewolf, but he is Russian enough that he believes in werewolves, or does now. I know Vasily. He and Babushka were friends in the old country. Small world, Ivan said. It is. I think he'll do a good job on Vanya's defense as long as Vanya tells him everything. Do you think that Vanya killed this werewolf hunter? When we heard that the man died, we suspected it. Vanya wouldn't talk about, though. He was in a deep depression. All he wanted to do was to sit in that apartment alone with his bottle of Stoli and his memories of his wife. We heard rumors, though, that Vanya wasn't the one who killed him. So you're hiring me to prove his innocence? Yes. Vanya is a born werewolf, so we don't have to worry about him turning with the full moon against his will in jail while awaiting trial, but who knows what he will do if he's sent to prison? I am afraid of what the fallout may be for our pack. What do you mean? I am the alpha male. It is my job to protect the pack, and soon I'll have a baby to worry about too. I trust you to find out who killed the werewolf hunter. I'm really hoping that it wasn't Vanya. If it was him, the pack could be in danger as the investigation widens and cops start asking questions about all of Vanya's associations, including us. Karina nodded, remembering something that her best friend Lexi had told her not long before she was killed by another werewolf hunter. Was this man killed with a gun? Yes, Ivan said. Just before the bail hearing started, one of the things I heard the DA whisper to his assistant was that they had found the murder weapon, a Glock compensator pistol, in Vanya's apartment. Sounds like a hitman's gun. She made a note about the gun on a tablet. Vanya knows about guns. Wasn't he in the Russian army at one time? I forgot all about that. She made a note on the tablet. His prints were on the gun. I don't know, Karina. It was only a bail hearing, and that whispered part about the pistol I only caught with my werewolf hearing ability. She tapped her pen on the desk. I can't see Vanya shooting someone with the state of mind he's been in. My babushka has been taking him meals because he wouldn't leave his apartment. He wasn't even turning on the full moon anymore, let alone changing his clothes, so how do you suppose he would be able to get himself out in the city, drive to buy a gun, and track this man down and shoot him? He was deeply grieving and almost unable to take care of himself. I have a hard time visualizing it too, mostly because it's in our deep-rooted werewolf instinct that when we strike out with our teeth and claws. The gun as the murder weapon just doesn't fit the way a werewolf would kill someone. Karina replied. I have never used a man-made weapon to inflict pain or death on anyone. I mean, in my youth I was really good with a bow, but that was target shooting for the school archery team. I don't personally know one werewolf who has a gun. Karina said. I have a gun, but it's a necessary part of my job, and I have a permit. Ivan nodded. She sat back down at the desk. Lexi had said the man who killed Vanya's wife was from the Urals. Do we know his name and where he lived? Did they figure out that this man killed Vanya's wife? Ivan took a paper out of his pocket and handed it to her. Here's the guy's name and address. I don't know if the police know who killed her. Think they may know, but no one was talking to me this morning. Karina looked at it. He was from Ekaterinburg. Andrei Koslov. Why does that surname ring a bell? Ivan looked at her in surprise. Karina, it was the Koslovs who killed your parents and mine. Oh no, I've blocked out the name for so many years. I thought I would never hear it again. Ivan, did you shoot Koslov? How can you even ask me that? I live by the pack law. Fangs, claws, responsibility for and protection of the pack. As alpha male, I lead the pack. And my life must be lived honorably. My behavior has to be exemplary. Don't exaggerate the size of your alpha halo, Ivan. I know you, and in your youth you did some things with your brother that were pretty boneheaded. Hey, Ivan protested. Don't sweat it. Nobody's perfect. And you know as well as I do that revenge can break down the resolve of the most honorable among us. Even you, Ivan. Any alpha could do something regrettable in the heat of the moment. What about you, Karina? Could you do something regrettable in the heat of the moment? She suddenly knew he wasn't just talking about premeditated violence or even about the man she had killed in self-defense as a teen werewolf. She caught the subtle scent of Ivan's old sexual longing for her, and her face flooded with an angry blush. No one is infallible, Ivan. Least of all me. Let's just stay focused on the murder investigation and put the past of you and me far behind us. You have Tatiana and a baby on the way. I have Jack. We've both moved on, right? He growled low under his breath and stood. Tatiana and I are now married. I'm happy for you, she blurted in surprise. Ordinarily, everyone in the pack, as well as any casual friends, would have been invited to such a celebration. She felt more than a little stung that she had been left out. Thank you, Ivan mumbled. I didn't know you two had even tied the knot. Did you marry in the church or at the courthouse? Civil ceremony with witnesses, he said curtly. She wanted more, though. It's a sore subject with her. Are you registered for gifts anywhere? Karina asked before she could stop herself. He gave her a furious look and left her office, slamming the door. She shook her head, annoyed. He's such an alpha male. However, she suddenly realized something else. But then so is Jack. Chapter 2. Since Ivan had left hours ago, Karina had been researching the case online. She sat back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. They were beginning to burn from staring at the computer screen, and her neck ached. She was rubbing it when the little shop bell rang and Jack came through the door for the second time that day. Hi, she said. Oh, you poor thing. Your neck hurts. Yes, it does. The first day it's all online and phone research, but not a lot of running around. I guess I need a more ergonomic chair than this one I plucked from the curb. And you need a boyfriend with magic massaging hands. Would you? Not too hard. I'll be gentle. He came around behind her. She felt his lips kiss the back of her neck. I like your hair like this. Shoulder length, so I can kiss your neck. You said it was your hands that were magic, not your lips. They are. That kiss was more for me than for you. She laughed. He used his hands and fingers to massage her neck, knowing where the tight spots were located. She moaned a little. She relaxed and closed her eyes, realizing how trusting she felt with Jack. She got so relaxed that she almost fell asleep. Wow, that was amazing. You can stop now. I'll do it as long as you want. That's a tempting offer, but I feel better now. Jack wiggled his fingers comically. Magic fingers, didn't I tell you? How was your morning, Jack? Not as interesting as yours, I'm sure. Coming around the front of the desk, Jack sat in the visitor's chair. How goes your first day on your first official case? Perplexing. I don't think Vanya killed the werewolf hunter. I've done preliminary research on the dead guy and his family. They were mountain people from the Urals in Russia. Here's something shocking. The victim has a connection to me. You can't be serious. Jack leaned forward. I'm totally serious. When Ivan told me the guy's name, I thought that it sounded familiar. He reminded me that it was the same family name of the werewolf hunters who killed our parents, my parents and his parents too. How could I have forgotten their surname, Jack? Traumatic experiences are like that. You lost both of your parents in a horrific way. You were uprooted from your homeland and transplanted to a place that must have been frightening and foreign to you. Los Angeles can be pretty scary depending on the neighborhood, but it was more culture shock than anything when we moved here. You've got that right. And your grandmother raised you, begging you to forget what you were, and I'm sure she did whatever she could to fill your life with happiness to try to make up for the loss of your parents and distract you from the grief. She did. She still does. So, it makes perfect sense that you would, on a subconscious level, want to forget the name of the people who put all of that into motion. You're very insightful, she said. You understand me. I mean, it's this basic need to want to be understood. It might even be one of the most important needs that we have. Is that why you love me? He asked. Because I understand? You're an incredible man. I have not even begun to know all of the complex layers of you. The physical, the intellectual, the emotional. I can hardly believe that we even communicate as well as we do. You bring me to this soft, honest place within myself. It's mushy, but I think I like it. He smiled hopefully. Karina hadn't told him that she loved him yet. She was just getting her feet wet with her private investigator business, and she had worked very hard to get here. Right now, she just wasn't ready to take the plunge headfirst into a more serious relationship as well. I want to talk about us some more, but not in my office and not today, okay? Sure, he said patiently. So where were we? Oh yes, I don't think I even looked at it that way, that I had wiped out the name of my parents' killers who had also killed his parents. These people are animals. He paused. Sorry, you know what I mean? Yes, I do. To Ivan, it was a betrayal to the pack that I had forgotten the names of our enemies. Anyway, I found out that the werewolf hunter and two of his brothers or maybe cousins came over here about 2 years ago. All three obtained legitimate work visas. They worked down in the city of industry at one of the warehouses. After Andrei Koslov was killed, the other two Koslovs seemed to have vanished. Andrei didn't have any criminal record, at least not here in the US. He wasn't married and didn't have any children. According to the news and police reports, he was shot with a Glock compensator 6 times. Sounds like a professional did it. Agreed. It was overkill, and it indicates it was done by someone who was very angry and someone who knew guns. The 6 shots were delivered rapid fire in a small area, with almost no deviation of the location of the impact. Short range. No, that's what gets me. Okay, that's significant. I thought so too, Karina said. I'm assuming someone with a sniper background, perhaps. Definitely an expert marksman, Jack agreed. Or markswoman. You're right, he said. Good detective work, Karina. Thank you. She looked at the clock. I'm going to the warehouse where Andrei worked to try to get a clearer picture of who this guy was and what he was about. Besides coming from a long line of werewolf hunters. Jack stood. I'll go with you. No, you can't follow me around all the time while I'm doing my job. I'll be safe. I have my own gun and I know how to use it. I'm not trying to follow you around. I just want to help. Good, she said with a sneaky smile. I need someone to fix the sink in the bathroom. It's leaking and I can't afford a plumber. My landlord handed me the keys this morning and took a plane to Hawaii, so I need to get this fixed on my own. Do I look like a plumber to you? He said, not exactly kidding. I don't even have a plumber's crack. Very funny. Did you eat your lunch yet, Karina? Not yet, but borscht isn't exactly eat-on-the-run food. I have an In-N-Out burger bag on the front seat of my vehicle. You can have my lunch. I just bought it and was going to eat it, but then decided to swing by here. You're gonna give me your In-N-Out? She teased. He laughed. Don't torture me like that, Karina. What would be the fun in depriving you of my sexy teasing? You're fun, even though you're sticking me with your busted sink and your borscht instead of getting to be with you. Sorry, Jack. Karina picked up her purse and jacket. I don't know if you can handle this plumbing job. Why don't you let me see you from the back? Jack laughed as she made her way out the door. He hit the remote on his keys and unlocked his vehicle so she could grab his In-N-Out bag. His whole vehicle smelled like French fries, and there was a soda in there too. She grabbed it and waved her thanks. Her mouth watered and she heard his doors lock as he used the remote again. There's sour cream for the borscht, she called over her shoulder. It tastes even better that way. Don't worry about me. I'll hold the fort. If I get any clients, she began, I'll get their information and tell them you will get back to them. Don't be nervous. If you need me, I'm a text away. Thanks. As she climbed into the small economy car she had rented for a few days, she immediately got a text. It was from Jack and read, Stay safe. Love you. Karina texted back a heart emoji and put her phone in hands-free mode. She groaned as she merged the car onto the packed freeway and headed toward City of Industry, shoving hot, salty French fries in her. Chapter 3. Traffic was heavy, so she had plenty of time to eat Jack's fast food lunch and wash it down with his Diet Coke while she inched forward in stop-and-go traffic. It took her over an hour to get down to Stimson Avenue to the warehouse where Andrei had worked. Karina parked in the visitor's lot and made her way to the office. Inside, there was a middle-aged woman at the reception counter. "May I help you?" she asked in a thick accent. "I hope so." She took her investigator's ID out of her purse and showed it to the woman. "I'm Karina Nosova, a private investigator, and I'm looking into the death of Andrei Kozlov. He used to work here." She looked at Karina's PI license. "I didn't know him, but I heard about the murder. What a shame. Is there anyone here who may have known him who I could speak with?" "I don't know," the woman said. "Everyone's on the clock right now, but in a few minutes the lunch whistle will blow. Most of them will go out to the food trucks parked out front. You could go up there and ask around." "Thank you, I will," Karina told her and went outside. She stood near the office and waited. The lunch whistle blew at exactly noon, and almost immediately, the warehouse doors opened and employees began to pour out toward the catering trucks. As the workers raced toward them, Karina sized them up. There was a group of men who looked to be executive types. She watched them go toward a van that was selling tri-tip sandwiches. Another group, the one gathered in front of the truck selling Mexican food, was talking loudly in Russian. Bingo! Outside of Babushka's neighborhood, it wasn't very common to hear anyone speaking Russian in public. The victim had been Russian, ergo clues were here. Karina moved closer, as if she was choosing the same food line. They talked softer now and gave her sidelong glances, but her werewolf hearing was keen. She could understand them perfectly and was surprised that one of the men was talking about her. "That's what I want for lunch, that delicious morsel," he said to another of the men, glancing her way as he spoke to his friend in Russian. The other man looked at her. "She's a little skinny, but I'd do her," he said. Karina walked closer to the two men, and looking them both up and down, she said in Russian, "Not in either of your wildest dreams, gentlemen, if I can call you that." The two men looked startled at first and then started laughing. "We were only joking around, miss," one of them said. "I'm sorry if we came off as disrespectful." "No harm done," Karina told them. "But maybe you can help me with something." One of the men looked at her suspiciously. "Are you a cop?" Karina showed her PI identification. "I'm a private investigator looking into the death of Andrei Kozlov. Did either of you know him?" They exchanged nervous glances between them. "Who hired you?" the other man asked her. "I can't tell you that. It's privileged information." "Well, I guess we can't tell you anything either," the man said, and they both turned to walk away. "Our information is privileged too. Please help me. I'm trying to find Andrei's killer." The first man who had spoken to her turned toward her. "I thought they already arrested his killer. That old man, Vanya." "They did arrest Vanya Rykov. However, I believe that he is not the killer." "Well, imagine that. The police screw up another murder case." "It wouldn't be the first time," she said and launched right into her questions. "Did you know Andrei?" "We all knew him," the man told her. "He didn't deserve to be shot and left in a back alley like a dog." "No one deserves that," she said, trying to make the man perceive her as on his side. "I do know this," the man said, still speaking in Russian. "Andrei was a hard-working guy. The word is that the old guy who got arrested had some kind of long-standing feud against Andrei's family, not even him personally. The poor guy died for something he didn't even do." "Do you know what the feud was about?" Karina asked. "Andrei was also a private guy. He lived with his brothers and none of them went anywhere without the others. Why don't you talk to them? Do you know where I could find them?" The man shrugged. "Haven't seen them for a while." "No one has. They were probably worried that the crazy old man was after them too because they don't work here anymore," he said. "I'm guessing they blew this city and went as far away as they could get." He turned around then and walked away. Karina hadn't really learned anything she didn't already know. She too turned to leave when another man approached her. He was a Chinese man in an expensive suit. "Are you looking for someone?" "I'm looking for information about Andrei Kozlov." "He's dead," the man said, his face a mask of concern. "I know. I'm trying to find out who killed him." The man glanced around them, presumably to see if anyone was watching, and then he slipped her a business card. "Call me," he said, and then walked away. Karina stuck the card in her jacket pocket. She turned to look over her shoulder as she pulled the rental car out of the parking lot and saw the Chinese man watching her. At a stoplight, She took the card out of her pocket and looked at it. It was a simple white card embossed with gold letters that read, Chung Lee, Imports/Exports, and a local phone number. When Karina got back to the office, Jack was sitting at her desk, looking at her computer. He looked up when she came in. I was using your computer to check out the job market. I hope that's okay. I don't mind, but how did you get past my password? Jack Hardy doesn't need any stinking password. You're dangerous, mister. You'll have to show me that trick sometime. How did the plumbing repair go? Sink's all fixed, boss. I got a new faucet from Home Depot and installed it. How much was it? It was $40, but you don't have to pay me back. Yes, I do. Fine. The receipt is in the bathroom wastebasket. She got two 20s out of her purse and handed them to him. Thank you. You rock. Any messages? He put the 20s in his wallet. No phone calls from prospective clients. Polished off the beet soup and did the dishes and put them away. And I hung the toilet paper the other way. It's over, not under. She laughed. Are you a little OCD? Nah, just teasing you. Got any more dirty little jobs for me? She smiled and went over and kissed the top of his head. Thank you, but as much as I appreciate your services, I think you're overqualified for this type of work. How's the security job hunting going? He shrugged. I've got a few viable leads. I think my heart is just set on becoming a private investigator. I could work cases with you until you could afford to pay me. I have savings. Karina sat down. Jack, I love spending time with you, but I'm afraid my babushka was right when she said that working together and sleeping together don't mix. Your innocent little babushka said that? Not in those exact words, but the point is the same. I'm really enjoying getting to know each other better, but I don't think the workplace is the place to do it. Jack looked disappointed. I know that you're right in that vein, but I really do wish you would get a partner. I'm going to be honest. You just don't have enough street smarts to keep yourself safe. Excuse me. Don't get me wrong. You've been well educated, but your life has been extremely sheltered. She was a little affronted. I think being a born werewolf can compensate for a lot of the dangers I may face. Anyway, any partner isn't in the cards for now. She couldn't take on a partner as long as she was on a case for the pack, and also, how the heck was she going to pay an employee? Even cops go out 2 by 2 in their first years. There's a reason for it. If she gave him even an inch, he'd go back to wanting to follow her around for free. But he needed to support himself too, somewhere away from her. Karina wanted to make it on her own and not depend on Jack. She was starting to feel a little smothered, and she didn't want to end up resenting him because of it. She wanted Jack in her life, but she also relished her independence. That's a lot of silence. I can see the wheels turning in your head. Jack sighed. I understand how important it is for you to do all this on your own. Except for plumbing repairs, I should be fine. There's no shame in asking to double up on a dangerous case. If you need a hand on any case, not just this one, promise you'll ask. I will, Jack. Thanks for understanding that I have to have something that's all my own. That's my job as your lover, to understand you. You're something. So are you. He paused. Tell Babushka the soup was amazing. I gotta go. I will. Where are you going? I'm going to talk to a friend about a security job opportunity. Oh, not a mall cop, right? Bite your tongue. This is a job where I get to wear a black suit and tie over a pristine white shirt, mirrored sunglasses, and a curly wire dangles behind my ear. That sounds intriguing, she said, impressed. Tell me more later. If I get the job, I will tell you what I am allowed to tell you. They briefly kissed goodbye. Thanks for the sink repair and the burger lunch. No problem. So long, and thanks for all the Chapter 4. Karina spent the rest of the day on the computer doing research on Andre and his family, and also on Chung Lee. Andre's family was pretty obscure, and there wasn't much information about them on English language websites anyway. She also checked Russian ones and still came up nearly empty. Chung Lee, on the other hand, was a different story. Karina found out that the man was not only an executive at the company that owned the warehouse where Andre worked, but he was the CFO. He also had his own import-export business. He owned a house in Orange County as well as apartment complexes in Fremont. He was married, but his estranged wife and one child remained in China, where he owned another house. Apparently, she had hated Los Angeles and fled back to China. He had been featured twice in Forbes as the highest paid and most sought-after man in his business, due to his ability to pull companies out of financial crises. He had also helped propel startups to top rankings in their business. He was the trendsetter of the import-export biz and had his hands in commercial real estate too. Karina pulled the business card out of her pocket. She looked at it for a moment, and then picked up her cell phone and tapped in the number. A woman answered. She had a Chinese accent that was so thick that Karina wasn't sure if she had said hello in English or Mandarin. Hi, Karina said slowly, enunciating her words. It was a silly thing that most people did when they were speaking to someone who spoke another language, and as much as it had bothered Karina when people used to do it to her before her Russian accent had diminished, she herself was guilty of it now. My name is Karina Nosova. May I speak to Mr. Chung Lee? The woman said something else that Karina couldn't decipher. There was then dead silence on the other line. Karina, thinking she had been hung up on, was about to press end when a man's voice came on the line. This is Chung Lee. This is Karina Nosova. I'm the private investigator to whom you gave your card today. I'm looking for information about Andrei Koslov. Ms. Nosova, are you working for the man who is accused of killing Koslov? I'm not at liberty to tell you my client's name. May I ask why that would be important to you? Andrei wasn't a very popular guy, and I can't imagine anyone on his side paying money for an investigation. The men I spoke to today seemed to like him. Chung Lee laughed. The Russians? They only liked him because he was Russian. I'll grant you that, she said wryly. I'm Russian too, as you probably know. By my name, and come what may, we do tend to stick together. The Chinese do that also, he replied. I'm curious about something. Why would a man in your executive position know anything about an individual warehouse employee? I'd like to help you. I'm just not a man who is comfortable discussing such things on the phone. I'm still at my office. We could talk here. Shall I text you the address? Unfortunately, I have engagements this evening. Perhaps we could meet in the morning, but I do need to stay close to my business. And truthfully, I hate the freeways. Who doesn't? She said. Of course, if there wasn't traffic, sometimes I wonder if I would even have any time to eat. Chung Lee laughed. That's very American to eat in your car. I've been thoroughly indoctrinated by the Southern California fast food culture. You're a very intriguing investigator. I try. Clients, of course, are important, but my main focus as an investigator is on seeking the truth. A worthy aspiration, Ms. Nosova. Since you enjoy eating so much, may I make a suggestion for our meeting? Of course. I have a friend who owns a restaurant on Spring Street in Chinatown. Maybe we could meet about 10 a.m. an hour before he opens? We can have dim sum and tea, and we'll have the place to ourselves. I'd like that, thank you. Wonderful. Take down this address. Sure. Shoot. Karina took down the name of the restaurant and the address. They reconfirmed. 4:10 a.m. and then hung up. She looked at the clock and realized it was already after 5 p.m. Speaking of eating, she said aloud, she was supposed to meet Jack for a fancy dinner at 7. With rush hour traffic, she would barely have time to go home and change her clothing. She grabbed her jacket and purse, turned off her computer, and locked the office door on her way out. She drove home via surface streets. This time there was no stop-and-go traffic. Karina was able to get home, shower, blow-dry her hair, change into a little black dress, throw on some pearls, and head out to meet Jack at the Italian restaurant they had agreed upon. By 7:10 p.m., Jack was already waiting for her at the restaurant's bar with a glass of ice water in front of him. He smelled her perfume, looked into the mirror behind the bar, and smiled at her. She walked up behind him. Sorry I'm late, Jack. Santa Monica Boulevard was packed. No problem. I just got here myself. Traffic was horrendous. When is it not? She said, and they both laughed. I feel like all I did today was eat junk food and drive around. Are you even hungry? Werewolves are always hungry. He kissed her on the cheek and murmured in her ear, You look so beautiful in that dress. You look handsome yourself, but you always do. Jack was dressed in a classy suit and tie. He looked very GQ. She'd never seen another werewolf dress as sharp as Jack. You want a glass of wine at the bar first? If not, they are holding our table. Nope, driving. Me too, he said. Dinner. Please. Jack signaled the hostess. A few moments later, she showed them to their table and handed them menus. A waiter showed up within a minute and took their drink orders. When he came back with their iced teas, he took the food orders. After the waiter left, Jack asked, "So, how was your first day as a PI?" She sighed. "Expensive. The office rent and the car cost me a big chunk of my savings already. But I remind myself that I'm building a business and investing in my future. The part one really enjoy is using my brain to figure things out. It's like putting a big puzzle together from the available clues. Waitressing and managing a restaurant didn't quite do that for me. Neither did working as an insurance claims adjuster, but it was a necessary evil on the path to my dream." Jack smiled. "I told you that I'd be happy to help you get a car financed. Really would be cheaper in the long run." "I know," she said, "and I appreciate it, but I would rather wait until this case is over and I get paid. Then I can buy a car for cash. A used car that runs." Jack rolled his eyes. "You're a stubborn woman, you know that?" Karina laughed. "It's in my DNA. You've met my babushka, right? She is the queen of stubbornness." "Point taken," he said. "So, did you find out any more information today?" "Not much. I'm going to speak with Chung Lee tomorrow. He wants to tell me something, but he wouldn't do it on the phone." "Is he coming to the office?" Jack asked. "No, I'm meeting him at a restaurant." She didn't tell Jack that they were meeting at the restaurant before it was actually opened and that there would be no other patrons there. "Good progress on the case." "I'm trying. What's your news?" "I got a good lead on a job today," he told her. "One I think I will really enjoy." "That's wonderful, Jack. Doing what?" "Security." "Not exactly. The DA's office is looking for someone to do outside investigating for them. I got a call from one of the ADAs I worked with in the past. She said they wanted to hire someone outside the department but with lots of experience, so she thought of me." "That sounds like an incredible opportunity." "Yes, it's probably a better fit than the other thing I was considering. Anyway, that's moot now. I have a meeting with her and the DA in the morning." "Well, good luck. Now enough with the shop talk. Tell me more about you." "Jack, I was going to ask the same of you. At least we're on the same wavelength. What do you want to know, Karina?" "I'm pretty much an open book." "Pretty much?" she asked and winked. "As much as you are. Tell me the usual and the unusual about you." "I was a cop for over 20 years, but now I'm retired. Oh yeah, and I'm a werewolf." She laughed. "All of that I know. Do you have family? Brothers and sisters? Are your parents still living?" "I have one sister. Her name is Desiree, but we call her Daisy. She lives in Minnesota with her husband and 2 kids. My parents live around the corner from her and suck up all the grandparenting time they can get." "Minnesota, huh?" Karina said. "Is that where you grew up?" Jack shrugged. "Partly. That's where my folks were from originally. I was an Army brat born on Fort Hood Army Base in Killeen, Texas, and then lived in Hawaii for several years. We then had a few years stint in Okinawa, Japan. Was a teenager by the time Dad retired and we moved back to Minnesota." "Thank goodness," he said with a smile. "I never picked up the accent." Karina laughed about the accent because she had worked for years on losing hers. "So, how did you end up in Southern California?" "My high school sweetheart got accepted to USC, and she wanted to be an actress. I applied to the Administration of Justice program and followed her out here. The AJ degree stuck, the relationship didn't." "Did she ever become an actress?" "I suppose so," he said. "I'd like to be sarcastic and say that if you call being that I can't believe it's not Cream Cheese Girl a career, but then I don't have a parody commercial that went viral on YouTube. I'll have to look for her on YouTube." "How about you and Babushka?" he asked. "Why California?" "We thought about New York City, but Babushka knew a lot of folks from the old country here in West Hollywood, so it seemed like a better choice. Outside of New York, West Hollywood might have the biggest community of Russians in the nation." She smiled at her own memories. "Lexi and I were once like your old girlfriend. Back in the day, we dreamed about being actresses or models. Lexi had the personality for it, but I never did. If she had lived, I think her modeling career would have really taken off. She just loved the fashion world. And she was so beautiful inside and out. You miss her a lot." Jack reached to take Karina's hand. Karina smiled sadly. "I do. I wish you could have met her, my soul sister. Babushka loved her too. Jack remembered the last time he had seen Karina's friend. Lexi had been lying, lifeless on a slab in the morgue. Me too. Their food came and it was delicious. Karina had the osobucho, the beef shank. Meat was tender and falling off the bones. Jack had the same thing, taking his cue from her when she had ordered. It's the best thing on the menu. You've eaten here before? Once. The occasion? Lexi and I got all dressed up one evening before we went to a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, but we came here first. She paused. We had such a wonderful time, just two teenage girls out on the town but pretending to be grown-ups. Don't worry. This place holds good memories for me. I'm glad too, Jack said. They enjoyed the food and Karina couldn't recall one lapse in their conversation. When dinner was finished, they had their coffee and the waiter asked if they wanted to order dessert. I'm too full, but thank you. May I have a doggy bag for the shank bones? Karina asked softly. Ditto, Jack said, and they shared a secret smile. Of course. The waiter brought the doggy bags and the check. Jack paid for the dinner and walked Karina to her car. They stood out in the mild night, neither one of them able to wipe the smiles from their faces. Thank you for the lovely dinner. I had such a good time with you, Jack. Same here. I'll never forget tonight. Which part? From your smile to your intriguing color-changing eyes to the way you delicately excise the marrow from a shank bone and savor that marrow on your tongue. Werewolves like to savor food and life. She held up the doggy bag. I won't overtly gnaw on bones in a restaurant, but at home, well, I am what I am. Me too. Besides shank bones from osobucho, what else do you savor? Love. A warmth spread through her. Love is the best part of life. All kinds of love. Even love for our werewolf selves. I'm just learning how to be a werewolf. I mean, the four-legged part is only a fraction of life, just one night a month. The rest of the time I have all of these new emotions and physical strengths that are like an undiscovered country. That's beautiful, Jack. I wish it was a full moon tonight so I could run with you under it on four legs. She laughed. We need to do that before we eat at the Italian restaurant. No. Werewolf runs willy-nilly over the countryside on a full belly. He smiled. Of course not. He glanced at his phone. It's early yet. Do you want to catch a movie? I'm going to call it a night. It must have been all the excitement of my first day of business, but I feel drained. I'm full too. I think I just need my bed. He added. I'm up for that too. Karina batted her eyelashes playfully. Another time, Mr. Werewolf, and just so you know, your eyes are starting to shift. What do you mean, shift? You know how you talk about mine changing colors? She asked. That's what we call shifting. They change colors with your mood now. Subtle, but I picked it up while we were having dinner and talking tonight. I'm not sure how I feel about that. She kissed him on his lips. You'll get used to it. Being a werewolf is going to be a whole new world for you. Remember, it's just full of possibilities that you would never have had as a human. She paused. Well, you know what I mean. He cleared his throat. You know, I could just come over and hold you all night. Let you sleep. Liar, she said, and they both laughed. You would not just calmly hold me and watch me fall asleep. I would try, he protested. Her eyes got serious. Jack, I had the most wonderful romantic candlelight dinner with you and violin music in that private booth at the back of the restaurant. It was like being wooed on Valentine's Day. Jack smiled that dazzling smile that she loved. His white teeth shone in the darkness of the parking lot. That was my intent. To woo you. Was it too much? She laughed easily. Let me just say that you know how to treat a lady. Don't want to say it was over the top, because I did enjoy myself immensely and I want more of that. I just want to slow down a little. I get scared that if we go too fast, that what we have is going to be too easily won, and just as easily it will slip away from us. I wouldn't let it. He looked at her intently. I've never quite felt this connection with another living being. It's like we are a part of each other. We are a part of each other. After your first bite from Lance Brashears that turned you into a werewolf, I bit you too. I remember. You said it was to protect me from his evil. Yes. And to claim you, though I didn't realize that it would create such a powerful link to each other. The claiming was not planned. Protection was on my mind. What does claiming even mean, Karina? Claiming means we are connected. Connected in some ways that even I don't Understand? It's deep and mystical, and it's rare for a female werewolf to claim a male werewolf. It's like me putting an invisible mark on you that leaves an imprint of my strength behind and perhaps establishes my territory. To keep other female werewolves away? Karina laughed. It's not that blatant or that simple. It's more like my psyche is linked with yours. Have you noticed we're practically finishing each other's sentences? I wondered about that. Is that why the pull of you is so strong? It could be. The claiming by a werewolf who puts you under her protection goes beyond the ken of those 3 little words spoken between humans. Far beyond. She paused and swallowed. We are more than human but not quite immortal. But only silver can kill us, right, Karina? She cleared her throat. Actually, werewolves can kill each other in their werewolf form. It is so rare that it is almost unheard of. Warring packs. Well, they tend to establish territory and then respect it. Any sharks versus jets type of showdowns tend to be more like skirmishes with minor injuries. Werewolves can and do kill each other? Yes, but as I said, it's rare. Between our hearts is a lot of mystical power, Jack, because we are linked by my bite and our intimacy, and on another level, our hearts. We have each other's strengths on tap. You're kidding me. Nope. We are far stronger as a couple than individually. Werewolves love to get coupled up because the benefits are incredible. I learn something new every day about my new form. Don't let it go to your head. We need to use our strength wisely to help each other grow into who we should be. Who we should be. I have career goals and personal aspirations, but also I think about you hundreds of times a day. He confessed. To tell you the truth, I'm a freaking romantic mess. And yet, I am more amazed by a living creature than I have ever been. Yes, you are. She smiled. Every time I think of you, I want to do great things and show you and tell you. I want to do challenging things that make the world into a better place. And I want to do things that will change us, evolve us into some higher state of being. I didn't know it would be that extreme when I gave you my bite of protection. I hope you calm down a little and just let things unfurl between us in some organic way. But still go for your dreams. All of them. But not for me. For you. Of course. I'm not going to run away, but you're rushing me into this serious life-altering coupled life when I'm just starting my investigation business. I need to focus on building that and simultaneously find a comfortable balance in our wonderful relationship. I'm getting it. You're crazy about me, but you won't let me be a threat to your career. You nailed it. Don't take it as something negative, Jack. You need to focus, too. We are about more than just each other. We have to be well-rounded in order to be happy with each other, and also when we are not together. When I'm investigating a case, I don't want to get distracted by thinking of you naked. I will lose my edge and my focus. We both know how dangerous it is to investigate crimes. I have to be completely aware of my surroundings and not be daydreaming about us making love. I see what you're talking about now. I'll try to calm down and think about what you said. Thanks for saying it in such a kind and smart way. You're welcome. The dreams are coming to fruition. More every day. I feel powerful, not just when I'm with you either. Why did you do all of this for me, Karina? I'll tell you when the moon is full. She paused. Good night, Jack. Good night, Karina. He refrained from saying that he loved her, and she noticed it. Suddenly she missed him saying it. With his hand on the back of her neck, he kissed her mouth so tenderly that she ached for more. Chapter 5. After she got home, Karina took a shower and went to bed. Oddly, she dreamed of Lexi, which she hadn't done since right after her best friend had been murdered. In the dreams, Lexi tried to tell her something, but her mouth was sewn shut. Lexi kept making faces and pointing at something behind Karina, but when Karina turned to see what Lexi wanted her to look at, there was nothing there. When she turned back to Lexi, she was dead in her werewolf form and stiff with rigor mortis. At 4 a.m., Karina awakened crying and dripping with sweat. She got up and ran a bath and put lavender oil in it to calm down. Tonight she would have an early dinner with Babushka. Maybe she would ask her if she knew what the dream meant. Babushka was not just an expert tea leaf reader, but she also knew how to interpret dreams. Karina got out of the bath, ate a protein bar, and went for a 2-mile run in the neighborhood. A nice easy run. Then she went home to shower and dress for work. By 7 a.m., Karina had gone into the office for a couple of hours before she had to meet with Chung-Li. She fired up her computer and again began doing research on all of those connected to the case. First, she looked up Andrei Koslov on a Russian background check website and used a prepaid credit card to do it. There wasn't much information. She got the address of his former home and looked at it on Google Earth. It was a modest home and had a tidy vegetable garden in the back, like many Russian homes in the suburbs. The car parked in the driveway was an older model Lada station wagon with dents in it and some rust. His property taxes had been paid until the last year. Now they were overdue, which gave her a clue to how long he had been away from Russia. So, apparently the werewolf hunter had only been in the US a short time before killing Vanya's wife. He had to have found out quickly where to find them. He could very well have gotten that information from someone before he came over, but then Karina had to wonder why he waited months before his assault. Karina then entered Vanya Rykov into her US People Search program, because Vanya had been in Southern California for over a decade. She came back seconds later with an address and known associates and relatives, in this case, Vanya's deceased wife, Dominika. It never failed to amaze her how easy it was to find someone in this day and age. She continued searching employment records, arrest records, and so on for Vanya and his wife. Neither of them showed either employment or arrest records up until the day when Vanya had been arrested for the murder of Andrei Koslov. There was one small link to a news brief about Mrs. Rykov's body being found stabbed near Plummer Park. It didn't say much and hadn't even given her identity, but Karina remembered the approximate date of her death and knew it was her they were talking about. The article stated that the police had no leads so far, and there was a phone number for people to call the police department's anonymous tip line. She also found links to articles about Vanya's arrest and Andrei's death. Another article headline caught her eye. Second body in 2 weeks found in alleyway near Plummer Park. The rest of the brief article was similar to the one about Vanya's wife, and had been published soon after they had found Andrei. The police weren't releasing any details yet, other than they didn't believe the two murders were related. Karina assumed that was due to the different ways they died, and the age and gender differences. The article also said that they couldn't release his name, pending notification of next of kin. Karina made a note of that. She would go to the police station and try to find out how they identified him and if they did, in fact, ever reach his next of kin. The next article she found was more specific. Body found near Plummer Park identified as Russian immigrant Andrei Koslov. That article reported that Andrei had been shot 6 times, but not where he lay. The police believed that the dump site of the body was not the actual murder scene. The police department number for the anonymous tip line was also at the end of this article. That prompted Karina to call Vanya's lawyer again. She left another message. She was hoping for permission to speak with him. She was really curious about what exactly had led the police to Vanya. She stopped there for now, wanting to get down to Chinatown to meet with Chung-Li on time. With LA traffic, one could never be sure how long it would take to get anywhere, but at 9 a.m. it was a safe bet that she'd be on the freeway for close to an hour. Karina made her way to Spring Street and easily found the restaurant. She knew Chinatown well. Since it wasn't yet open for the day, the parking lot was virtually empty. She went up to the front door and pulled on it, but it was locked. "Good morning, Ms. Nosova. You're very prompt." Karina heard this from behind her. Turning around, she saw Chung-Li. He was dressed in an expensive-looking silk suit, shiny shoes, and sunglasses with lenses so dark that she couldn't even see a shadow of his eyes. As he shook her hand, she said, "I like to be on time. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me." He surprised her by taking a set of keys out of his pocket and opening the front door with them. He held the door and gestured for her to go in. He followed her inside, and she was somewhat relieved to see that staff were there working in the kitchen area and doing table setups. She had feared for just a second that she might have made a mistake by coming here to meet him alone. He led her to a small table near the window facing the busy downtown street. As he pulled out her chair and made sure she was seated comfortably, he motioned to one of the men behind the reception desk. The man came over and bowed once to her, and again to Chung-Li. "Welcome, friend," he said in accented English. He looked at Karina and said, "Welcome, friend of my friend." Thank you, Karina said. Lee asked, how about some tea, Xiong? The man bowed again theatrically this time and bustled away. Lee told Karina, Xiong and I have been friends since childhood. He is quite a character to say the least, but the best damned cook you'll ever meet. Karina smiled politely. She didn't really care for tea and uninformative small talk with informants in murder cases, but she was anxious to get to their discussion about Andre. She sat through it though, not wanting to insult her informant before she had gotten any information. She politely declined the dim sum she was offered, and agreed to fresh almond cookies and tea. After she had taken a bite of an almond cookie and sipped some of her tea, Karina said, tell me about Andrei Koslov. Let's get down to business, huh? He teased. She nodded. I'm very direct. Saves time and we both need more of that. Don't we? I like that. As I already told you, Andre worked for me in the warehouse and in my apartment business on the side as a handyman. What I didn't tell you was that he was kind of an odd fellow. How do you mean? Well, first let me tell you that I don't hire any randoms off the street to work for me. I am a businessman above all. Andre was a hard worker and he was dependable. I could call upon him at any hour and he would be willing and available to work. He didn't have much of a social life, I presume, but that was probably because he was so odd. One night, to thank him for a job well done, I brought him here for dinner and drinks. Andre seemed to be having a good time at first, but then Xiong came over to welcome us and Andre's whole mood changed. Chung Li paused. He sipped his tea and took a bite of his dim sum with his chopsticks. Karina forced herself to wait again until he was ready to tell her the rest. At last he said. He acted nervous when I introduced him to Xiong. When my friend left the table, Andre was visibly sweating. I asked him what was going on. Later on, I wrote the whole thing off to the sake, but now I wonder. He seemed to have gone off in his own thoughts, so Karina tried to redirect him. I'm sorry. You wrote what off? I'm getting to it, bear with me, he said, sighing. He told me we had to go immediately. He looked so pale and shaky that I thought he had suddenly taken ill. I walked out with him, and as soon as we were outside he seemed to start feeling better. I said something to him about having too much to drink, and it was then that he turned to me and said, don't go back in there. You need to stay away from that man. He is a werewolf, a Lang Rin. A werewolf? Karina asked, trying to act as if she had never heard of such a thing. Chung Li laughed again, this time sounding slightly anxious. That's what he said. Lang Ren is the Chinese word for werewolf. I didn't know what to say, so I asked him how he knew this. He lit a cigarette and looked around like he was paranoid that someone was listening. Then he asked me if I knew that Xiong was descended from the Turkic peoples. Turkish? Karina asked, thinking perhaps she had heard wrong. No, Turkic. He spelled out the word for her. The Turkics are people who originated in Central Asia, and their territory extended to Siberia at one time. The majority of these people lived in China historically, but they are now a melting pot of cultures. The scary part about what Xiong was, it was true about werewolves. You believe that werewolves actually exist? Karina played along. Yes, because they do. His family came to Hong Kong when he was a child, because their land is constantly embroiled in political warfare with Russia. Since the 19th century, Russia and the Turkic people have been calling the region by the two different names. The Turkics and the Chinese, for that matter, call the area Xinjiang, but the Russians have insisted on calling it East Turkestan. That would imply politically that it is somehow related to West Turkestan, which is under Soviet control. Xiong's parents wanted him to have a better life. I didn't know any of that. I mean, I should have, but I came to this country many years ago. I am more versed in American politics and geography than in Russian. Siberia was, well, where the prison camps were for 100 years. Know much less about the region you mentioned. Lee smiled. I'm sorry for the history and political science lesson, I suppose. The point of it all is that most people don't know about any of it unless they have lived there themselves. I asked Andre how he knew where Xiong was from, and that was when things got really weird. How did they get weird? Karina asked, now fascinated with the story. She also kept silent about her questions about Turkic werewolves. The topic was a little too close to home. And then it got even a little closer. Lee continued. He said that while he and his brothers were growing up in the Urals. They had family who visited them often from West Turkestan. He said that his entire family was made up of werewolf hunters, and that the family from West Turkestan would tell stories of the Chinese werewolves, or Langran, that they hunted in East Turkestan. He said that he heard Xiong's accent and looked into his eyes, and he knew immediately who and what he was based on what his family told him all of those years. Honestly? Werewolves and werewolf hunters? Karina tried to sound shocked. Didn't you worry that he was unstable at that point? He nodded. Yes, of course. I told him that even if he was a werewolf, I couldn't have him working for me if he were going to run around talking about werewolves and werewolf hunters. I imagine that werewolves, if they exist, want to keep what they are on the down low. You'd think so, wouldn't you? I have a reputation as a serious businessman. My employees are a reflection of that. He said that he understood and promised me that what he was about to tell me would be the last of it, so I listen. He told me that he and his brothers came here to LA tracking a pack of werewolves from what he called the old country. I asked him what he would do if he found them. He stopped there, looking at Karina. She lowered her color-changing eyes, pretending to take notes. Karina waited, but he didn't seem like he was planning to go on. Finally she asked, so, your friend says he's a werewolf and your employee says he's a werewolf hunter. What did Andrei Koslov say he would do if he found the werewolves? He said he would kill them. I fired him that day, and I also set in motion for his brothers to be let go from the warehouse. I can't have my employees talking about murder or planning one in my workplace. However, since they were all good employees, firing his brothers was going to be more difficult as they had not done anything wrong that I knew of. It was guilt by association. But I wanted them gone. All of them. We hadn't let any of them go before Andrei was murdered, and then after that the other two brothers vanished. Thinking hard, Karina tapped her pen on her notepad a couple of times. You know that the police suspect Andrei's murderer is an old Russian man? Yes. Do you think that perhaps Andrei thought this man was a werewolf and the old man killed him in self-defense? Chung Li shrugged. Maybe. Andrei certainly seemed to believe what he said to me that day. I'm glad he didn't find the people he was looking for before he died. The old man who is a suspect lost his wife several months ago, right after Andrei and his brothers came into the U.S. She too was murdered. Her murder has not been solved, but her body was found near Plummer Park as well, and she had been stabbed. The shock on his face was genuine. I didn't know any of this. I can't believe I had this man, Andrei Koslov, working for me in another capacity besides the warehouse. He was going in and out of my tenants' apartments doing handyman work. I guess that gives the old man a motive. That is what the police are thinking, I'm sure. I hope they are wrong. Ms. Nosova, can I ask you a question? Sure. Do you believe in werewolves? Karina hoped that the color in her eyes remained stable. Of course not. The last thing she did before leaving the restaurant was to go and thank Xiong Li's friend and chef. She also told him it was a pleasure to meet him. She thanked him for the delicious food. He pressed both of her hands in his and bowed. Then, looking her in the eyes, his irises went from brown to green. She knew what he was too. Chapter 6. Karina went back to the office, not certain what to do with the information that Chung Li had given her, and the fact that his chef friend was a Lang Ran, a Chinese werewolf. She sat at her desk and turned on the computer. First, she looked up Turkic. There was a lot of information, but what Li had told her basically summed up what she needed to know. She then typed in Lang Rin. She could find very little in Chinese legend that was related to werewolves. The Chinese mythology seemed to be more about tigers and foxes. Finally, she looked up Turkic legend, and that was where she found exactly what she was looking for. The Turkic people believed themselves to be descended from wolves. There was a legend about a young boy who was abandoned as a baby and raised by a female wolf. When the boy was older, he and the wolf became closer. The boy was killed by the villagers, and the wolf went up to the mountains and gave birth to 10 cubs that were half human. From these cubs the Turkic people descended. As Karina read the passage, she wondered if she herself had not been born a werewolf, would she still believe it? She would think of lycanthropy as entertaining folklore, coupled with the fact that Turkic people were a blend of cultures, some of it her own, and she had seen the color of Xiong's eyes shift. She pondered where to go next with her investigation. She was lost in thought when the door's shop bell jangled. She looked up and saw Igor and Ivan. Ivan smiled at her, and Igor glanced around the small room. "Nice," he said, almost completely disguising his sarcasm about the size of the office. She ignored the sarcasm. She was glad to see them. "Hello, Igor, Ivan. How are you two?" Igor grinned at her. It was one of the ways that Karina could always tell them apart. Igor's smile was always tinged with cynicism. "We are just great. Karina, my brother here is leading a pack that is running scared from werewolf hunters who seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth. Oh, and then there's the matter of our retired alpha male, sitting in the county lockup, talking to who knows who about who knows what. How are you?" Ivan looked at his brother like he wanted to smack him. Instead he said, "Sit down and shut up, Igor." Igor started to argue, but for whatever reason he decided to do as he was told and sat. "I'm sorry for my brother's bad behavior," Ivan said. "We just came by to see if you had learned anything new on the case. I am practically working around the clock. It's only been 2 days, though, so surely you didn't expect me to figure this all out overnight." "No, Karina." Ivan's voice was low and soothing. "We honestly were just in the neighborhood. We just went to see Vanya's lawyer and thought we'd stop by here on our way home. I'm sorry if it seemed as if we were pressuring you." Was a spur-of-the-moment decision to swing by. "It's okay, Ivan. I do know what is at stake. Can I ask both of you something?" She looked at Igor and back to Ivan. "Have you ever heard of Chinese werewolves?" "Turkic, not Chinese," Igor said right away. "So you do know of them?" "I've heard of them," he said. "They are said to be a vicious breed. They kill everything in their path on their full moon runs, man or beast. There is one Langren here, maybe more, I don't know." Andre had figured it out not long before he died, and it may have led to his death. "I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I get a feeling that it is. I'm still gathering intel." "You said there is one here. A Langren. Have you seen him or her?" Ivan asked. "I saw him, yes. On 2 legs. His eyes shifted when we talked. The contact I spoke to today said that Andre said the chef Xiong was a Langren. My contact fired Andre because he said he was going to kill werewolves, and that particular werewolf is a longtime friend of his. And he also fired Andre's brothers. So, do you think maybe this Langren knew that Andre had figured him out and then killed him before Andre could kill them?" Ivan asked. "I mean, is this Xiong a suspect?" "I think so," Karina told them, "and it's a direction to investigate further." Looking at Ivan, she asked, "Did you speak to Vanya and ask him to give his attorney permission to speak with me?" "Yes, that's the other reason we stopped by," Ivan said sadly. "Vanya doesn't want to talk to you or us for that matter. He revoked the release he had signed for us to get information." "What? Why?" Something turned inside his head. He has got this idea that no matter how hard he tries, he is going to be convicted. That was what the attorney called to talk to us about. He's concerned that Vanya may be suicidal. "Suicidal? Have you talked to Vanya?" Karina asked Ivan. "Not since the day of the bail hearing, when we had about 6 words between us. I go during visiting hours, but he refuses to see me. Perhaps your babushka might be willing to go. She may be the only one he would agree to talk to. I'm having supper with her in a few hours. I'll ask her. They are old friends, as you know. I hope he will see her." Ivan thanked her, and Igor just gave her a little wave as they left. She always got the feeling he was making fun of her somehow. It infuriated her sometimes, but right now she had other things to worry about than Igor's snarky attitude. When they were gone, Karina picked up the phone to call the detective who was the lead on Vanya's case. As she began to dial the police station, the shop bell jangled again and Jack walked in the door. "Hey, Jack." She hung up the phone. A little happy jump went through her that he was here. "How did your job interview go?" He came over and took her by the hand, lifting her off of her chair. He kissed her passionately. When he was finished, it took her a few moments to catch her breath. After she asked, "Does that mean it went well?" He smiled at her. "Sit back down and I'll tell you all about it." She sat down and smiled back at him. "Okay, tell me," she said. Jack sat down too. "It wasn't exactly an interview. They had already decided that they wanted me to take the assignment. It was more about them telling me what they could do for me. It all sounded pretty good, and other than acting, as your lead plumber here, it was the best offer I've had since I took my early retirement from the police department. She waited. Karina could sense there was a but coming, but she waited him out. She nodded for him to go on, and he finally said, but then they told me what my first assignment would be. He paused again. Karina said, are you sure your ex-girlfriend was the actor? You seem to be pulling off those dramatic pauses pretty well. Jack laughed. You're right. This is hard to tell you, so I'm just going to spit it out. They want me to lead the investigation into the death of Andrei Kozlov.